This episode is brought to you by Our Daily Bread Ministries, a global media organization that makes the life-changing wisdom of the Bible understandable and accessible to all. Visit whereyou'refrom.org for more information. That's whereyafrom.org.
Before we begin this week's episode with Paralympian rugby player Joe Delagrave, I want to share something with you I have never shared before. I recently spoke at a mom's group and a young singles group on the topic of rethinking comparison, and I would love to speak to your group. Are you planning an event for your church or a small group of women? Do you know a women's ministry leader looking for speakers? Now that live events are back, my calendar is open, and I have a few dates available in the fall and winter that I would like to ask you to help me fill. If you or someone you know is looking for a speaker, will you email me at graceenoughpodcast@gmail.com for more information, or you can visit graceenoughpodcast.com/speaking. It would be an absolute joy to connect with you and share the message God has given me with your women. This week on the Grace Enough podcast, I sit down with Joe Delagrave to discuss the tragic event that changed his life, wrestling with his identity in Christ and his identity as an athlete, and becoming a Paralympian who will be competing in Tokyo in a few short weeks. Good evening, Joe. Welcome to the Grace Enough podcast.
Amber, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat tonight.
I'm excited to share your story and just dig into a little bit about what you're even doing right now. And so as we get started, introduce yourself, your family, and tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Here's the deal. I've been a wheelchair rugby player for 13 years in the national team, and we are getting ready to train. Not ready to train. We are training hard, and we have been for the last 4+1 because of the postponement years. So 5 years of this quad for Tokyo 2021. I leave to go to camp. Our final camp is August 7th. That's 120 days away. Wow. So it's getting crunch time, and that's everything that's on my mind. The other thing that God has for me is I'm a speaker. I've been a full-time speaker since 2018. I say full-time, but I feel like I wear like 15 different hats. I'm sure you can relate. Yeah. It's one of the things I get to do. I absolutely love to share my story. I love to be able to inspire people to inspire themselves. I love personal responsibility. To just listen to what the Holy Spirit's saying and step in obedience in that. And hopefully I don't want to be anyone's like just inspirational poster. I want them to be able to say, you know what, this guy had something to say, where I might need to take some inventory and figure out if everything's aligned right in my life. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'm married to April. We've been married almost 14 years now.
Yes.
And we have a 9-year-old Braxton, a 7-year-old Braden, and a 5-year-old girl, Brinley. So 2 boys and a girl keeps us busy. That is what we got going on.
I love it because I have 2 boys and a girl, and then my sister's oldest son is Braxton. And so you don't hear it that often, but when I read that in your bio, I was like, oh, fun, another Braxton. I mean, I've heard a couple, but not that many. So that's awesome. Yeah. Well, so let's dive in a little bit to your story. And so I want you to set the stage by telling everybody a little bit about your childhood and your love of sports all throughout adolescence.
Yeah, I mean, we can see each other right now, obviously people listening, but when you said that, you can kind of see me smiling. I absolutely love sports. It's always been a passion, and I love competition. Like sports, like I'll make Scrabble. My wife won't play Scrabble with me anymore because I get too competitive. She says,
"This is my husband."
I just think that she needs to get better, is what she. But
that is also my husband.
I just love to be competitive. I love sports, and the biggest reason, not only the wins and losing in the lessons, but to be part of a team, to figure out how you fit in to the overall picture. I did plays and musicals as well because I just loved to perform and be on stage and do that as well. I think I was pirate number 7 in Pirates of Penzance. So that was like a pretty big deal in high school, pirate number 7.
That's awesome.
But no, it's just something that I absolutely adored growing up with that, whether it was with baseball, basketball, football, swimming, whatever it was.
Yeah, well, when you were a college athlete, you were playing Division II football, and as a college freshman, a defining event took place in your life, and it really changed everything. And so, will you tell everybody a little bit about what happened on that day in July?
Yeah. So just got done with my freshman year of college. I was playing football, like you said, in Division II. So it was Winona State Warriors in Minnesota, and it was a
Ooh, that's
phenomenal year. I
cold.
guess it is cold. I live in Wisconsin now. I lived in Arizona for 8 years, and I don't know. I just call it the Caribbean island, Wisconsin. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some of that.
I know I
We'll-
have to pause for a second because, see, my husband played college football at Grove City College in Pennsylvania. And
Okay.
he grew up a Florida boy and moved to Pennsylvania.
Woo. Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't know him then, but he talks about like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that many gray skies could
Yeah.
exist. And I'm like, I can't
It's
imagine you in Pennsylvania.
it when you see recruits come up, they have no idea, and then they get, and it's to them, it must be like a 4-year prison sentence or something. For real, it is. Yeah, yeah. God's got a funny way of that. I was like, I was never coming back the winter, and then all of a sudden, here we
Here
are.
you are.
And
Sorry, I didn't
anyway,
mean to go off
yeah.
on that tangent.
No, that's great. That's great. So finishing up my freshman year of college, and everything, it went really well that year. So I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up knowing Jesus. My mom was just on fire for God. She had a
Mm.
transformation in her life when she found out she was pregnant, quit drinking, quit smoking, turned to Jesus. Like here's my mom and I love her, but she, like, if I'm gonna bring home a math problem and I'm 10 or maybe later in high school and I'm like, Mom, I need some help with this algebra, and she's like, Jesus is the answer. That's my mom. Like, I'm like, Mom, that's not going to give me an A. You can't. She's like, Jesus, you got to start praying, son. I'm like, Mom, you can't. Okay. But no, like, one of the most beautiful things that she did, she committed to reading scripture to us at night. And so I
Yeah.
remember, whether I was 5, 10, or 15, and whether I wanted her to do it or not, she was there every night. And I remember in the hallway, my sisters were in the other room, and my little brother and sister and me, and you could just hear her reading. Sometimes it's like, Mom, I don't want to listen to this King James stuff before bed, like, but she was just so committed and devoted to us hearing the scripture. And something about just
Mm.
hearing the scripture is so
It's a
powerful.
gift.
It really is. And so where I'm going with that is, about a week before July 10th, on July 3rd, I was wearing a Don Beebe House of Speed shirt. Don Beebe was an old Buffalo Bill when they lost all those Super Bowls, and one for the Packers. And I got this shirt from our kicker on our football team. I had forgotten my shirt underneath my pads. Our kicker had an extra shirt, and he thought it'd be funny to give me this one because I was a tight end. And for any of you that are listening that know football, I was close to being a tackle. I think they were feeding me a lot and grooming me to kind of not be
Move
so
on
much of a
over.
tight. Move on down
That's
to, yeah.
right.
Yeah, and so the kicker's making fun of me. I'm like, you're not even a football player. Why are you making? And so it's one of those, and so I'm like, I'm gonna keep this shirt. A week before my accident, a week before July 10th, on July 3rd, I was wearing this shirt, and I didn't realize it at the time that it had anything on there, because as my athletic career took off, my relationship with Jesus, my time with him went away. When I was trying to find myself as a 19-year-old, like a lot of kids do.
Yeah.
But on that day, a camp counselor, I was working a basketball clinic in my local high school, and the camp counselor goes, "Hey, what's on your shirt?" And I'm like, "Don Beebe, man." I telling him all the story about the kicker and making fun. And he goes, "No, what's that Bible verse?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about?"
Oh.
And on my shirt was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6.
Mm.
And everyone, like, you guys all probably have it in your house. Like, my wife and I had it in our bathroom for a while. I joke like I needed it while I was pooping type of deal, to trust the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your understanding, in all your ways, acknowledge him and he'll direct your paths. I remember hearing that and I'm like, that's pretty cool. And I went home and I like opened my Bible probably first time like all summer and just read it. And so I was like, that's neat. That's like, that's a Isaiah 40:30. That's like, one of those like feel good Bible verses that look good on Instagram type of thing. Like everyone's going to like that bad boy. And a week later, I had an accident. I was on a boat with my buddies, Kyle and Adam. Grew up on the same street in Ohio Street together in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. It's a river town in the Mississippi that borders Iowa. And we're always on the river growing up.
Yeah.
Kyle got a boat that was handed down from his grandpa, a little bass fishing boat, 35 horsepower boat, and nothing big, but we tooled around that. We fished. We just pretended we were Huckleberry Finn on that bad boy.
That's
like
right.
And knee boarded and did the whole thing, and we're just boys. And that day it was like any other summer day. It's 75 degrees. It's partly cloudy. I'm just chilling in the boat. Adam's knee boarding and Kyle is driving. And as I'm enjoying the day, my hands are behind my head. Kyle accidentally hits the bottom of the river. We were in a back slough. You never know how deep or shallow that river is. And he hits the bottom and I flew backwards. The chair broke. I flew backwards, hit my head on the front of the boat, inside the boat, and instantly broke my neck at the C6 and 7 level. Mm-hmm. So in a split second, I'm going from 19 years old. I'm 6'6", 260 pounds. And at 19, when you have all that masculine energy and you just feel invincible, you feel so like I'm doing my dream. Like my dream was to play college football or a college sport. At least my dream was to do that. I had goals. Like I want to be the best I can be, maybe all conference, maybe all American, whatever it would be. And in a split second, that's gone. I remember my buddies, Kyle and Adam, they were looking over me. I had just woken up from being blacked out for about 30 seconds, and Kyle and Adam got tears in their eyes, and they're going, Joe, terrified. They're going, Joe, are you okay? Can you feel your legs? We were all lifeguards growing up, and it was the easiest job in the world. We never had to save anyone, but we knew
I was a lifeguard too. You're right.
Like it was so easy. You just And anyway, you're lifeguarding is a really tough job. We're selling it
when something happens.
But they knew not to move my neck. They knew not to move me or anything like that. But they asked me 2 questions that just rocked me to the core. They asked, Joe, can you move your legs? And I sent the signal from my brain down through my spinal cord into my legs and subconsciously, because that's what you do. Mm-hmm. And nothing happens. And I'm kind of going, maybe it's a stinger, maybe what's going on. And I remember the excruciating pain that I had from my head being split open. And they go, Joe, can you reach down and feel your legs? And I reached down and I felt my legs. And it felt like I was touching someone else's legs. And I'm going, something's wrong. And ended up going from my boat to the rescue boat to the ambulance, the local doctors. Adam's mom was a nurse there. She's still a nurse there, been a nurse for 40 years in the local hospital. And she's like, Joe, you've sustained a spinal cord injury and we need to med flight you up to the local bigger hospital to have surgery. And that's when life drastically changed.
I want to take a moment to tell you about one of my new favorite small businesses, Green Roof Gallery. I came across Bethany and her unique, handcrafted leather earrings when a friend shared Green Roof Gallery on Instagram. Green Roof Gallery creates leather accessories for the grown-up girl who loves simplicity and a natural style. Handcrafted, small-batched, unique, and personal. Bethany parallels the process of leather work with the new creation theme found throughout the Bible. God takes our seemingly unusable mess-ups and makes them new and unexpectedly beautiful. When you wear jewelry or use a journal from Green Roof Gallery, you will be gently reminded that God takes the hard and ugly times and uses them for our good and His glory. You will know every product went through some not so pretty times to get to the beautiful finished piece that now belongs to you or the person you might gift it to. And let me say, I own 2 pairs of the teardrop leather earrings. And when they arrived, I was beyond impressed by by the detail of the design and the beauty of the color which Bethany hand paints. Plus, Bethany was quick to respond to my questions, and she cares deeply about helping women own their whole stories while seeking God throughout. As a Grace Enough podcast listener, you can take 15% off through July and August using the code GRACE15. Go to Etsy.com and search Green Roof Gallery. At checkout, use the code GRACE15 for 15% off your entire purchase. You can also learn more on Instagram and Facebook by searching Green Roof Gallery. Well, and you've said that identity is something that you've really wrestled with most of your life. And I feel like a lot of people can say that. But when you have a life-altering event or sports, man, when you're good at them, and I know I wasn't a phenomenal basketball player, but it's easy to put all your value in that. You know, it really does become a part of who you are. And so as this 19-year-old boy relearning to do everything, how would you describe that wrestling during that time?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think we do this enough. I don't think we wrestle with this stuff enough when something's not going our way or we don't understand it. And we see it in the Psalms, whether it's David or other psalmists that are crying out, yelling, screaming. Because, hey, here's the deal. Like you and I, we each got 3 kids in our families, and like, there's some yelling and screaming that goes on sometimes. There's real emotion.
Yes.
Let's keep it 100 right here. But sometimes we don't like to do that to God. We don't want to take it to God. Well, God knows my problem. He wants to hear us when we're at our happiest, when we're at our saddest, when we don't understand. When I had surgery and remember kind of coming to in memories, and I've got all this tubes and stuff coming out of my body, and I remembered that verse, Proverbs 3:5-6, and my sisters had written it all cute on a poster like sisters do and stick it on the wall. And I wake up and I see it each morning, and I just wanted to rip it down. Like, trust in the Lord. Are you kidding me right now with this like little inspirational quote? Like, I am paralyzed, laying in this bed. My identity as an athlete is ripped away. And I was so mad at God because, God, you made me this way. Like, it says it like I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and my gifts and talents and the way I see things and hear, like, this is you. And why are you ripping this away from me? Right? Like, how hard I worked for this. Yeah. And it's like, don't lean on your understanding and acknowledge it. And no, like that's what it was each morning. So each morning I would make a choice. You know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this myself. Like, I'm a big, rough, tough football player. I'm a man. Like, I can do this. I can get through this. And I remember starting to pray. I'm going, God, just heal me. God, like, heal me. God had called me in to be a speaker when I was 13 at a district youth conference.
Wow.
And I remember at 19 and having this accident. I'm like, okay, God, like, okay. If you heal me and you get me out of this wheelchair and get me out, like, then like, oh, we can go, I can share my story. This will be great. This will be amazing. This is a God story right here. Like, this is what I'm praying for. And, going through the script, flipping through the script, like, I don't know if we need to be Lazarus, start raising, like, get my homeboys to raise me down through the roof type of, like, what do we need to do here? What do I need to do? And it's almost like, how many works can I do to earn this miracle?
Yeah. And
the wrestling of it and going, like, at 19, we have a lot of questions, but I think having this happen, I'm going, like, God, is there purpose in this? Is there a plan for this?
Right.
Am I going to find a job? Am I going to find, like, is my girlfriend going to stay with me? Am I going to be able to have kids?
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal here?
How long were you in rehabilitation?
3 months.
3 months.
3 months, 89 straight days.
PT, morning and night,
hospital, right? PT, OT, twice a day.
Do you remember the emotions of that? I mean, the physical therapist in me. That's what I am before maybe that
Yeah.
is what I still am. That's what I did
Yeah.
before I had
Yeah.
kids. But I just remember a lot of the spinal cord injuries that I worked with. You do have to go through that grief cycle, the
Yeah.
same that someone goes through actually when they have lost someone to death, which is, at first it's denial, then it's anger, then you get kind of more to that like acceptance phase. And so, do
Yeah.
you remember the feelings during that time?
Yeah. And I truly didn't get over the whole deal of being in a chair for probably close to 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember in the hospital and there's mirrors and stuff, and you see
Mm-hmm.
myself in a wheelchair, and I'm just like, oh, who is this? Who is this crippled dude? That's not
Mm-hmm.
me. That's not me, and then, but then also some of that athletic mentality took over a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, where I'm going, okay, like whatever I can do, I want to try to do on the physical therapy mat or an OT, and just trying to figure this out. And really, what had transpired was that verse on my wall started to change my heart. I remember, I talked about my mom reading to us in the scripture, and there's a song called Spirit Lead Me that's been out for a few years,
Yeah.
but one of the lines is, when all hope is gone and the word of God is all I have,
Mm-hmm.
do you still believe that there will be water from the rock?
Mm.
And I remember having a night going like, God, I can't do this by myself. The percussion therapy that woke me up every 3 hours because I had pneumonia in my lungs, and
Oh,
I'm going like, I'm just tired,
and they're
and they're just
pounding your
pounding. She's like,
chest.
sorry. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And just remember going like, I can't do this by myself. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
I have to believe that there's something here for me. I have to trust in you, because I can't go on just pretending that I'm just this big, strong, a muscular dude that's gonna do this, and it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And that was when there was a change. And I remember, okay, if I plateau, then we'll keep figuring out, and still like believing, what, maybe God has a plan. Maybe that's healing. Maybe that's walking someday. And so I worked my butt off at as hard as I could. I get mad sometimes when people are like, well, if you try your hardest, you're gonna walk in. I'm like, well, that's not how that works. Like, that's,
It's like
there's miracles, and then
when people look at you and they're like, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I'm like, that is not biblical.
yes,
Do not throw
yes,
that out at people.
yes,
That is not even true.
yeah,
It drives me
yeah,
crazy. It's like,
yeah. Let me burn that T-shirt that you have for,
that's
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Well, so tell me then, how did your walk with Jesus at that point? You are looking at this poster, it becomes much more than an inspirational quote, which goodness knows we could use a little less social media on the inspirational quotes at this point in our lives, because we need the context, right? We
Yeah,
need the
yeah,
road
yeah.
that people have walked, from Bible people all the way up until now. And so, do you feel like from that point forward, the depth of relationship with Christ changed, or what did your faith journey, like, how has that evolved from that point until now?
It has been. It's the journey is a journey. It's called a journey for a reason. I
That's
think
right.
sometimes we're like, well,
Two
and
step
I'm,
forward, one step
yeah,
back.
exactly, real authenticity with that, and it was, okay, God. Yeah, all right. Like, let's rededicate my life to that. Let's find a reason. And then a month, maybe 2 months after, I'm not just exactly sure the date. There was a guy in our youth group. He was in middle school when I was in high school, but a guy in our youth group was driving home from a county fair on a dirt road in Iowa, got thrown from the vehicle and broke his neck and died instantly. And I remember getting that call. They said Josh had passed away. And I'm going, God, like, the craziest part about this story is I was talking with his sister and his mom, and this dude was, I didn't know him very well, but at 16 years old, the day before he died, he was witnessing to one of his friends going like, hey man, do you know Jesus? And like,
Wow.
do you know where you're going? And he's like, if something happens to me tomorrow, I'm going to heaven. And this is what, and the next day, and I'm going, God, like, I'm the one here backsliding. I wasn't like, why are you taking him right now? And I remember at that moment, God reminded me about second chances. Reminded me about opportunities to be in relationship with him. And I don't understand it, again, the verse. And again, like, I don't understand this. Why would you take this guy that's just witnessing at 16 and on fire for Jesus, doing his thing, and then this dude that's playing football and would literally rather be hanging out with his boys at a house party playing flip cup than like, like that's and that's when I just, at times we have to allow ourselves to let God have our heart. End of Romans 2 and 3 talks about the circumcision of the heart. You're going, circumcision of the heart? What? No, wait a second. Like in John 15, the same thing. Those are two of my favorite passages where he says we're going to cut the branches off, throw them in the fire, but we're going to prune the other ones. Oh, you're going to cut the other ones. You're going to circumcise, like you're going to circumcise my heart. And when we give it to him, he says, man, I'm going to mold it. He's the potter and we're the clay. And we're going to mold this and into who he's made us to be. And it's a journey. I say it's a journey because God told me I was going to be a speaker at 13. I said, you're crazy, and get this story at 19. And I'm still like, man, like, yes, I want to do this, but I'm not sure when and where. But the next part of the story is just a beautiful deal where, I believe it's in Psalms that it says in scripture, delight yourself in the Lord and he'll give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah.
And it's like the next miracle of my story of getting to be an athlete again.
I know, which we're going to get into. And so before I do that, I do have to ask about your mom. I mean, have you ever asked her, like, Mom, what was it like for you to walk or to watch me walk through this early on?
I have, and I didn't understand it until I became a parent, because you see,
you just don't.
Yeah, you just don't. You just don't.
You don't.
And I remember after Braxton had grown a little bit and calling her and talking to her about it. And because when you go through it, you don't even, a lot of times you don't think about the perspective of other people, even my own mom.
No.
And,
well, I think sometimes we think about our parents the least, it's sad.
Yeah. But she said, Joe, like, I knew that God had a plan for you, and it was hard to see you go through that. And I think a lot of times we trauma dump on the people around us that we love the most.
Yeah.
For me, that was her. We had a lot of fight. I mean, I was 19 and after rehab, moved back in with my parents, like every 19-year-old kid's dream, right?
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
And now that I'm a parent, I'm like, that's probably not every parent's dream either. And so we, here I am, 19 years old, and my mom and I had a crazy close relationship because she was taking care of me. I couldn't take care of myself. And so she's doing, I mean, the bowels, bladders, the whole, you understand as a PT, the hardest part wasn't the chair. It was
all the other
at
stuff.
19, having my mom literally have to stick a catheter in.
That's right. Your independence is gone.
It's gone. It's gone. And so it was us trying to work together to make this thing happen and start figuring it out.
It's incredible the legacy that parents leave behind when they do things like read scripture to their kids every single day, and they're not perfect. But you're right. I mean, I asked that because as a mom myself, I'm thinking about the heartbreak I would be experiencing to watch my children walk through that. Yet I would be having my own frustration with God.
Yeah.
Yet still begging him to have mercy in the situation. So that's just a complex thing to really think about. But let's get into rugby. How did you end up starting to play wheelchair rugby?
It's a wild story. It started with me going home and eating my feelings. We talked about OT. Some of my OT was, and my wife makes fun of me and that's a whole part of the story too that I definitely got to shout her out. If most of your audience
she was your high school
women,
girlfriend, right?
That was my girlfriend at the end of high school in our first year of college.
Okay.
Right. And then she stuck with me throughout the whole deal.
Wow.
89 straight days. I actually broke up with her for a little bit after because I was like, this girl loves me too much. Like, I don't know if this is scary. And it was like, the dumbest, smartest thing I did, because I realized, wow, like, no, God gave me to her. Like, God gave me her because she's one of those people that will lift you up when you need it and then pull you back when you need it. Sometimes she lifts me up when I need it, pulls me out of my wheelchair when I need it. She's not.
That's right. Other times she's like, hush your mouth.
Exactly. So she always jokes like my occupational therapy was picking out like candy with my fingers and putting it in my mouth type of thing to see if I can get some dexterity back. It wasn't good. So I gained a lot of weight. I got out of the hospital at probably 220, 230, something like that, lost a lot of muscle. And then at home over the course of a year, got up to around 285 pounds.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot of emotional eating.
I wasn't able to push a lot of emotional eating. And I was a football player. It's like, I know how to eat. Like, I'm not shy with the fork. So right before that, I did not want to play sports. I did not want to play the adaptive sports. I'm like, I don't want to hug. I don't want like this. It's not going to quench my fire. So it wasn't until my buddy Kyle, who was driving the boat that day and still one of my best friends in life, is in more ways, or he was very loving and kind about it, but he goes, Joe, you're fat. Like, that's basically what he was saying. He's like, you probably should figure something out. And we weighed me on a hospital bed in our local hospital because there wasn't any wheelchair scales. And I was like, your bed's broken. It says 283 pounds. There's no way I'm that big. And so they zeroed it out again. And it like the next one, I didn't have a snack in between, but the next one said like 284. And I'm like, okay, I get your point here. We need to figure out a sport. So I looked up sports online, and nowhere in my story will you ever hear me say, you know what, I like a nice jog. I like to run. No, I don't. So wheelchair racing was out. That wasn't going to happen. Wheelchair basketball, I looked up because everyone in a wheelchair plays wheelchair basketball. At least that's what they get asked when you're at airports. You're out and about. Yeah. And I realized that I didn't have the function for it. And then I saw a wheelchair rugby video, and wheelchair rugby used to be called murder ball. And I click on that thing, and these crippled people are chasing each other around, crashing into each other. And this is amazing.
You're like, this is for me.
This is my jam. Sign me up. So I found a team that was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at a place called Courage Center, and went up there to a practice. Wanting to watch, they made me get in a chair, and the rest is pretty much history.
So how old were you at that point? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was 21.
Okay, so just a couple years out.
Yeah.
When you first started playing. Well, so then you get to this place though where did you play in the Olympics, and then 4 years later didn't make the team? What's that story with the Olympic journey?
Yeah. So shortly, obviously set some goals and lost some weight and figured out how to be an athlete again. And that's.
And you loved it, like pretty much.
Loved it from the get-go. It was amazing. Like, I remember my first practice,
awesome.
And my lungs are filling up with air, and you're getting hot. I can't sweat because of my injury, but you're getting hot, and this is exciting. You're passing the ball around, and I was terrible and everything like that. But I remember just driving home. April had came with me. I was driving back down to Winona and going like, that was amazing. I'm an athlete again. I get to be an athlete again. And I want to go back up there. And it was so exciting. And so that I ended up setting goals and ended up making the team in 2012 to go to the London Paralympics, where we won bronze. And then
so cool.
In 2013 became a captain. And so like the career is just going really well, but with winning bronze, we had lost to Canada in the semifinal game by 1 to go to the gold medal game. We were down by 9. Like, it was a Disney movie for the last, like, we're fighting all the way back. We come back to tie it. All we got to do is score. And then it's the anti-Disney movie. Like, we had the theme music playing. We had the Chariots of Fire music. Like, the whole thing was going to be amazing. And then turn the ball over. Canada goes and scores. We lose the game. And we had been ranked number 1 from 2005 to 2012. So we were supposed to win. We were supposed to go in and win.
Whew, that's tough.
Yeah. But I got tunnel visioned on gold after London and bronze, and we hated called the brown poopy medal. We just like it wasn't the right color. And we need to win gold in 2016.
Oh,
And as one
yeah.
of our leaders, I'm going like, if we win gold, that's going to validate me. That's going to affirm who I am. And
You're
I
really
took it
struggling with
to
identity still.
I'm wrestling with identity still because I didn't realize it, but what had happened, I just got wrapped up into being an athlete because an athlete, there's a lot of affirmation there. There's a lot of
That's right.
identity there. And like, you know what? I'm okay being in a wheelchair right now because like I'm a Paralympian and I can tell people I'm a Paralympian. I can tell people about, I can show them my medal and that's all good.
Yeah.
But in my relationship with Jesus was still fine, but I don't think I was stepping in obedience like I should have been. I don't think I was leading like I should have been. I was leading for an outcome, not leading to serve other people on my team and to
Mm.
build other people up, and then help people back down when they needed it. And 2016 rolls around. I ended up not making the team.
Which I bet was a
Um,
shocker.
it was a shocker I kind of knew it was coming. There was a guy that I was a captain with. I ended up I ended up doing something right as a leader and shut down like this crazy party he wanted to have
Mm.
at a development player's house at a camp. I mean, crazy, like
Yeah.
escorts, and I'm like, this isn't what I'm
Nah,
going, this isn't going to happen. Like, this isn't a thing. So
it
I said,
was.
I said, I'm not going to stand for this. This isn't going to happen. We're not doing this. And he ended up becoming an assistant coach. And I said,
Mm.
I said, I don't think I'm going to make this team, guys. And they're going, Joe, you're crazy. Like, you're a captain. But like, I 2014 won best in the world in my class, like that. But I could see it started, and I'm like, I am going to work as hard as I can,
Yeah.
um, and whatever happens, happens. And ended up getting cut from the team. That devastated me just as much as being paralyzed. I kid you not.
Really?
It was it tore me apart.
Wow.
I had ended up I'm as authentic as I can be. I remember it tore me apart. It ripped my identity away. I remember going home after that camp and I got drunk like no other.
Mm.
Um, because I thought I failed as a leader. I failed as a husband. I failed as a father. I failed as a parent. Like, just saw myself as a failure.
Yeah.
Saw myself as broken. Like, what do I have if I can't go and win this gold medal? Because this is what we set our sights on for 4 years and sacrificed so much for. And it's a beautiful thing when you have mentors in your life that will kind of slap you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I had finished my undergrad or my graduate degree in professional counseling and was counseling in a private practice in Arizona. And Dr. Michael, who was an amazing mentor, amazing man, I was venting to him, and he had known the story of this guy, and I told him about it. And I'm like, I didn't make the team, and I just feel so, just hemming and hawing. And he said something really simple, but it's completely changed my life. He said, Joe, feeling broken, huh? Feeling like you don't have an identity, huh? I'm like, yeah, Dr. Michael. Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. Come on. Let's do this powwow together, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, what's Jesus say about that? And I kind of like, uh, let's not talk about him right now. Let's finish this pity party. And he goes, no, what's Jesus say about who you are?
Yeah.
And he's like, it's not a trick question. It's a Sunday school answer. I go, he calls me a child of God.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, what do you do on the cross for you? I'm like, all right, we're going to be Sunday school 101. He died on the cross for me. Oh, for you. Oh, you're a child of God, but you're calling yourself broken. And it was the most Christianity 101 thing. But guys, the gospel can be easy. It can be easy. We make it hard and difficult. And in that moment, I realized it doesn't ever matter if I've got medals hanging on my wall, or I'm a gold medalist, or I'm a Paralympian, or you have the best job, or for those that are listening, I'm just a housewife, or I'm just a business owner, or I'm just, no, like we need to start from the top.
Yeah.
Because it gets powerful when you say, I'm a child of God.
Mm-hmm.
I am who God says I am. And all of a sudden from there, it's like, all of a sudden my chest is puffed out. I'm ready to rock,
That's right.
and from there, I realize it's not who I am, it's whose I am first and foremost. And so that failure, that really dark spot, was one of the most monumental things that happened to me. And it's a Joseph moment where you go like, the enemy meant it for evil, but God will turn it for good every single time.
Well, and I love that you say that, particularly what you were talking about with the authenticity, because I think so often we hear the highlight, we hear the one like really bad thing that happens to people. And so often we don't get insights into the journey in between. And, it's like, okay, I was super disappointed. I got my priorities mixed up. I mean, that's so many people's story. That's my
Yeah,
story. I decided to get drunk because that's a coping mechanism of mine.
yeah,
People have that story. But then at the end of the day, yeah, it's when people speak life to you. We have this benediction that we do that's from Henry Nouwen, and this is as a family, I'm not what I do. I'm not what people say about me. I am the beloved of God. It's who I am, and no one can take it from me. And so while that is just
yes,
very repetitive for my family and they forget it sometimes, even with my 11-year-old, there's been times, where he's just melting down in 11-year-old meltdown style. And I'm like, you're not what you do. You're not what people say about you. You are the beloved of God. And there is a sense of, okay, these are just elementary truths of the gospel that
yeah,
we've got to speak over
yeah,
ourselves. And
yeah.
so I love that you say that, because now you're training for the Tokyo ParaOlympics. And so what do you feel like you're doing now to keep, Jesus and family a priority in the midst of what does have to be very dedicated, driven type of training?
I am a recovering people pleaser. I,
Mm.
and I care so much about what people think. To the point where, okay, if I'm going to get, because it's an affirmation thing,
Mm-hmm.
that stemmed from my childhood and stemmed from my dad not being present in the
Mm.
home. He was in prison, in and out of prison for a long time. I didn't see him
Mm.
from when I was 5 until 20. That's a whole nother part of my story. That is insane. Basically, at 19, after my accident,
He just
after
showed
God,
up.
no, I got no, God did a work in my heart that was insane. He said, "You're gonna go see him in prison," and I'm like, "Nope, absolutely not. This guy's broken my heart a million times." And so throughout childhood, affirmation was really important. That's why I love sports so much. So I
Yeah,
can get affirmation from my coaches. I do a good job,
that's right.
and so and a little bit more about my dad. Like, God taught me about second chances. I got a
Mm.
second chance.
That's right.
And he's like, well, your dad needs a second chance. And I'm like,
Mm.
he's got like seventh, eighth, ninth chances. Come on now. And he goes, he just laid on my heart to, he needs someone to love him.
Whew.
And so I ended up showing up to the prison. And it went terribly wrong before I even got to see him. The security guard, I'd never been to prison before since I was 5. So I'm going, I don't know how this bad boy works.
That's
So
right.
I roll in there and they're like, you can't go in that chair. I'm like, it's like my shoes. What are you talking? And I was a
Like, I
couple
can't get up
years,
and walk.
right. There's a couple years, post injury. So I didn't know how to advocate for myself. So I ended up getting in this park bench with wheels, this big old hospital type chair in the prison, go to see him. And it was one of the most beautiful things I was ever able to do. Because
Really?
true healing took place, true free. I was very direct with him. I'm like, if you mess this up one more time, I'm out, but I'm here to see you. April
Wow.
came with me. She's the one that kind of nudged it. This woman, I go, hey, I'm thinking about this. I'm confiding in her, hoping, praying that she says no. She's like, this is a great idea. You need to go see your dad. This is the man. Come on. Uh, so that's that story. We ended up reconciling. He passed away in 2016, but we had 11 years of a
Wow.
relationship, and It was a beautiful thing. And I think for those of you out there that whether it's a child or a parent, um, they need to be loved and they want to feel loved. And if you're not going to do it, who will? Um, even though like my heart was, there was some bitterness in there. There was a
Yeah.
little bit of that brewing, but um, I'm so thankful for the time we had, especially after he passed. I'm so thankful that I
Yeah.
made that decision and God laid it on my
Absolutely.
heart and nudged that way. But
Wow, that's incredible.
yeah, so total side tangent. And then I think we were talking about what I did differently
Yeah, just what you're
after
doing
that.
differently now, really,
We
because I
came back
mean,
and yeah,
it
yeah,
takes a lot of training, but you've learned a lot since that first go around of, well,
yeah,
Jesus is going to be the co-pilot in
yeah.
this.
Foundation is important. A lot of times the old Bible, whatever, with the sand and the rock, and don't build on the sand. And most of our like, we got the rock. We're doing good. We got the rock.
Mm.
But the other thing is there's some cracks in the rock sometimes. There's some TLC that needs to happen. There's maybe some DIY stuff that needs to rock and roll with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, turn on the spiritual HGTV and let's fix this thing.
Yeah.
Um, because a lot of us at times we're going, oh, our relationships with our kids are good, and our relationships with our spouse is good. Like, how about rock fire on solid? Like, this is your most important relationships that you have. Stop going outside your four walls and start living inside your four walls. So for me,
Mm.
first and foremost, that's what changed. Is I need to make sure that my relationship with my wife is not only good but rock solid. And it's the most important besides my relationship with Jesus. And then with the kids, going like, yeah, training is going to be hard, but they're a priority.
Mm.
And loving them and building a relationship with them. And so building the home before going into the program, but then there it's the same thing, serving those guys, getting to know people, figuring out how I can be a better leader in knowing them. And then when I ask them to do something, they see that it's rooted in love and not just in oh, this guy just wants an outcome of a gold.
Yeah.
No, this guy cares about me. This guy loves me. This guy's asked about my family. And
Wow.
so I think that's what's been different. And you can see it in our team. We love each other. We talk a lot about emotional things off the court. And so when we're on the court, we can yell at each other and they know it's rooted in love.
That's right. That's awesome. So then will it be in August this year? No, you said your
Uh,
last, is that when they're doing it?
August 7th would be our final training camp. August 17th is when we'd fly over to Tokyo for the
Wow.
game. So it's finally coming.
As we close out here, what would you like to say to someone who is listening who has experienced a life altering accident?
Um, I think I want to share a quick story to answer your question.
Sure.
Like I said at the beginning, the 19-year-old version of me had all these questions, and he had a Bible verse. The questions about who he was and what he was going to do, and if this is going to work, and everything like that. And then the Bible verse was, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your path. And it took me a long time to figure that out. It took a lot of wrestling and back and forth to figure out, okay, I got to trust in the Lord. But me taking that step and trusting in the Lord, I never, going back, you think, oh, like, God, if you just give me this miracle, I'll be like, people are going to want to hear me speak. This is going to be amazing. God, if you
Yeah.
just do this, and God has a purpose and a plan for your life. And just because you're going through something that is physically altering or mentally altering, or it's a divorce, or it's losing your job, or whatever COVID related problems that you've had financially or physically or mentally, God has a purpose and a plan. It took me a long time to realize that my miracle was choosing to get in the chair. My miracle was a spiritual transformation that was taking place by giving my heart to Jesus and getting in this chair. When I look back, getting in this chair and figuring out independence, I'm completely independent now, but figuring that out right away was, how do I put my socks on? How do I put my pants on? A shirt? How do I push this chair on the block? That led to graduating college. That led to getting a master's degree. That led to marrying my girlfriend who went through this with me. That led to 3 kids. God has given me a crazy amount of 3s in my life that lead to something that I'll finish with. But at 13 was my first 3. He said, "You're going to be a speaker." I said, "You're crazy, God. I don't got any crazy stories. I'm not going to be no speaker." At 6 years later, he gave me a crazy story with Proverbs 3. He gave me another 3, Proverbs 3. After my accident, the doctors had walked in my room and said he had a 3% chance to walk again. And I clung to that. Yeah, that's the 3 I want. That's the 3 I want. We get married and we tried having kids for our first 4 to 5 years of marriage. We had been prayed for when April was pregnant. And someone says, I see 3 nests or 3 eggs in the nest. And I was like, "You're crazy. There's no way." We have 3 beautiful kids. God said, "You love sports, Joe. I'm training for my 3rd Paralympics with 3 letters on my chest, USA." My success isn't defined by a gold medal. It's defined by a permanent victory in Jesus. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever struggles, whatever pain, God knows your heart. Cry out to him. Tell him about it. Be real with him.
Yeah.
And understand that he's putting people in your life around you that love you, that will support you, that are going to be a rock for you. And trust that he has a plan for your life.
Thanks so much for that, Joe. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can go to joedelagrave.com. Or I'm probably most active on Instagram, jdelagrave14. So that's where you can find me. Yeah.
All right. I'll make sure that I link those in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I really look forward to just following along with this journey as it plays out over the next several months.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Amber. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I want to thank you if you made it to the end with the poor audio quality on my part. I actually forgot to turn on my microphone. I also want to ask you to remember that I have opened my calendar for speaking and would love to share the message I believe God has given me with the women at your church or your small group or a weekend retreat, conference, or any other ministry you're involved in. If you or someone you know is looking for a speaker, connect with me at graceenoughpodcast.com/speaking or email me at graceenoughpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to the Grace Enough Podcast. Tune in next time.